At this point in my life, Greek, frankly, is pretty easy for me. And I don't mean I have it mastered or that I never meet a verb I don't understand or anything like that. No, I still get stumbled and I still get confused, but I basically get it. And like anything, once you understand something, you don't understand people who don't understand it. Which is why it's a very good thing for me that while I'm teaching you Greek, I am also trying to learn a whole new language of my own called HTML. And I'm trying to create this website and maintain it and figure out how all these things work. And I'll tell you, there are times when I just want to throw my computer out the window, at the wall, whatever. I'm just so overwhelmed by this. I feel steamrolled and confused. And it's not that any of it is really all that hard. It's just there's too much of it. And I can't assimilate it all. And it's good for me to feel that way because I know that's how many of you feel as you're learning Greek. And I just want you to know I feel your pain. And I can remember what it felt like the first time I began to study Greek. It was the same kind of feeling. And I want to encourage you not to give up. I've been doing this for over 10 years, okay? I've been doing this a long time. But I don't think it needs to take you 10 years because frankly, I didn't get the help I needed. I just feel like a lot of the methods don't give you the categories and help you to establish the necessary distinctions in your mind that can help you learn quickly. So I promise you, you stick with me, it will not take you 10 years. You'll get there faster than you think. It will come together. Okay, and so we've seen that there are 4 sets of endings that help us sort things out here. We have our primary endings and our secondary endings, and remember those mainly have to do with time. And then we have our active endings and our middle passive endings, and that has to do with voice. So in the primary active, for example, I'm doing it, it's active, and it's happening in present time because it's primary ending, primary active. So I am loosing, I'm doing it in the present time. In the primary middle passive, it's happening to me in present time. So I am being loosed. In the secondary, active, I'm doing it, but it's in the past now, right? Secondary. Secondary active. I was loosing. I'm doing it in the past time. In the secondary middle passive, it's happening to me, right? In the past time. I was being loosed. Now again, our trouble here is not so much Greek as it is English. All these little helping verbs shifting around and changing forms. But anyway, so that's the 4 sets of endings that we looked at. And then we talked about tenses. And it's important to see how these words change form to show us tense. And so just taking the verb luo, in the present tense, it's luo. Okay, so what you learn, the lexical form will be the present tense. If I want to make it imperfect, I augment it to put it in the past and use secondary endings. So it becomes eluon. If I want to put it in the future, I put a sigma before the personal endings. So luo becomes luso. I will loose. If I want to make it aorist, undefined action in the past, I augment and use sigma alpha. Elusa. I loosed. If I want to make it perfect, I reduplicate and use a kappa, so it becomes leluka. I have loosed. If I want to do a perfect middle passive, then I reduplicate and use the primary endings, but without the connecting vowel, so it becomes lelumai. And then there are these weird sort of passive forms here for the aorist and future. If I want to say aorist passive, in other words, it happened to me in past time, I augment and use a theta eta. So eluthane. I was loosed. Or if I want to make it future passive, I use theta eta sigma. Of course, no augment, and I'm going to use the middle passive endings here, so it would be luthesamai. I will be loosed. Okay, now I know that's a lot, but let me just remind you, these verbs are just changing form to show us their tense, voice, mood, person, and number. And this master chart, which you will learn to love because this is the thing that divines this all for you, that sorts it out and puts everything into the right category. Again, we're learning to see the big clues. We're not trying to memorize every possibility because there are just too many. No one's mind can contain all that. And that's not how you learn language. We're learning to see the patterns. Today, it's the liquids. Now I know what you're thinking, it will liquefy my brain. It won't liquefy your brain. In fact, it's just one more thing to put on the pile here. It's a simple thing. I realize there are too many simple things, but let's just try to grasp this idea of liquids. A liquid verb is a verb in which the stem ends in a lambda, mu, nu, or rho. Those are the liquid consonants. Lambda, mu, nu, and rho. Now why those four? Well, it has to do with how we form sounds, and how the air flows out of our body when we say these letters. But if you think about it, o and the air flows over the tongue in a certain way. And when we say or the air actually goes through our nose. And those are the liquids. You don't really need to remember all of that, but for whatever reason, lambda, mu, nu, and rho, okay? Now, this may help you, it may not. The way that I remember those four letters is I just remember it's elementary. L, M, N, E. Elementar. Lambda, mu, nu, rho. Lambda, mu, nu, and rho. I'm trying to stick that in your head. Those are the liquid consonants. And here's the deal. When a verb has a stem that ends in a liquid, and then we tack on the ending, and the ending begins with a sigma, well, the Greeks don't like the combination of a liquid and a sigma, so they drop the sigma. Things combine and odd things happen. So now I want you to think for a minute. The liquids will only apply then in two places with two verb tenses. Which tenses involve sigmas? Future, right? The future. We add a sigma before the personal endings. So lu, so, for example. So the future involves a sigma. What other tense involves a sigma? Aorist, right? Because we have sigma alpha. Okay, so elu sa. So in the future and in the aorist we have sigmas, and that's why we have this combination of the liquid consonants with the sigmas, and slightly odd things happen. So let's take a look at what happens when verbs liquefy. Take a look at your master chart, and you can see that in the lower left here we have liquid futures and liquid aorists. Now I want to point out that there's no difference in meaning between like a liquid future and a regular future. It's just a difference of form. And really all we're talking about here is the fact that after a lambda, mu, nu, or rho, the sigma drops, as you can see here. Let's take a closer look. Let's start with this verb, minnow. Now, minnow means I stay or abide. It's John's favorite verb, right? Abide in me. Christ says that, of course, to the disciples. So, minnow, let's say we want to make it future and say, I will stay. Well, normally what we would do, of course, is insert a sigma because that's our clue for the sigma. But what's the problem? We have min, so, right? Just like that, just like we see. But the problem, of course, is the new sigma. Because notice we have the liquid consonant that ends, the stem ends in this liquid. And then we insert the sigma for the future. And we have this horrible collision, new sigma, minso. That's not that hard to say, actually, but the Greeks didn't like it. And so they just dropped the sigma, leaving us with minnow, like that. Except, you'll notice if you look at the liquid future chart on the left, it's accented differently, isn't it? Minnow. And you might think of the accent over the omega, over the vowel, as there to sort of show you there was a collision here. Think of it as a little mushroom cloud or something like that if it helps you. So minnow, just like, let me type this one out. Minnow, like this, just means I abide, I stay. But minnow, like this, means I will stay. And how would we know the difference? Well, in this case, we only get the accent to show us the difference. And for you twisted souls who really want to know the full story, here it is. You might wonder, why the lengthened vowels here? What's going on with that? Well, what's going on with that is that the actual tense formative for the liquid future is epsilon sigma, not just sigma. And so when you take a verb like minnow, and let's do minnomen, okay? First person plural. And let's add epsilon sigma in there. Okay, we wind up with min esamen. That doesn't sound too bad to me, but the Greeks did not like that. Esa. That's called an intervocalic sigma, and they did not like that sigma. So they did what they do when they don't like a sigma, they just drop it, leaving us with min eamen. But if you'll remember, ea is one of our vowel contractions. Do you remember that? It becomes min. Epsilon omicron becomes oo. Remember that? But also oo with the circumflex, min, oo, min. Like that, which, well, there's our form right there. Minumen.
TMI, Miss Girl. I'm thinking.
Yes, that probably is too much information, Miss Girls. You don't need to know all the reasons why everything comes out the way it does. All you really need to remember for the liquid futures, lambda, mu, nu, and rho. Anytime you see one of those consonants at the end of a verb, and then the ending, it looks kind of augmented like this with a circumflex, and in fact these look just like epsilon contracts. When you see that, that's a liquid future. Meno means I will stay. Menes, you will stay. Mene, he, she, or it will stay. Min umen, we will stay. Min eta, y'all will stay, and min usi, they will stay. Liquid futures. Since I keep talking about it, take a look at the difference between minnow, which is a liquid future, and poieo, which is an epsilon contract. Look at the endings. They're identical, right? So how would we know if we're looking at a epsilon contract or a liquid future? Well, we get two clues actually for that. One of them is that meno, when we learned it, we didn't learn it as like meneo, like that, right? Because it's not an epsilon contract. So we know it's not an epsilon contract. It's not an epsilon contract. But there's another good clue, and that's right here. If we look at meno, look, we see our liquid consonant. And none of the epsilon contracts will have that liquid consonant before the endings. So we have really two clues. The liquid consonant and the fact that when we learned the verb, we didn't learn it as an epsilon contract. It's not an epsilon contract. Poieo, now that is an epsilon contract, so that's the whole different matter, right? Okay, that does it for the liquid futures. Let's take a look at the liquid aorists. And what we'll see with the aorists is that they're actually easier because, again, we'll have a stem that ends in a lambda, mu, nu, or rho, like minnow. But there's no funny vowel stuff going on here. We just dropped the sigma. Let's zoom in. Let's turn minnow into an aorist. Okay, now if it weren't a liquid, we would augment, right? So it would be and then we'd have min, and then sigma alpha. Not I stay, but I stayed. Past tense, right? Aorist. Great. Well, wait, maybe not so great, because here we have it. New sigma. It's a liquid and a sigma. Now, in this case, it's much easier. All they do is drop the offensive sigma here, leaving us with emina. Except you're saying, wait a minute, it's not emina, it's amena. Why are we adding this iota here? Well, now here is a bitter pill for you to swallow. It just happens. How's that? Well, it often happens that vowels will change length from tense stem to tense stem, especially in the irregular ones like the liquid aorists and other ones that we will meet along the way. So how come we don't just have emina like that? Well, it just happens. I'm sorry that there's not a better answer than that. I'm sure there is some long convoluted answer, but let's not do it, okay? Let's just accept that vowels will change shape a bit on us in Greek. This is called
ablaut, which is a fancy way to say pain in the neck. But just, one of the things, if you've ever had Hebrew, you will learn that the consonants tend to carry the meaning, not so much the vowels. The vowels shapes shift a lot, but notice the consonants will tend to remain stable. So learn to look for consonants and understand that in the stems, from tense to tense, sometimes things will shift around a little bit. Hey, but don't fret it, man, because we still got our clues, don't we? We have our augment, tells us we're in the past. We have our liquid, and then we expect to have sigma there. There's no sigma, but it's an alpha. Oh, it's a liquid aorist, which means I stayed. So, emena, I stayed. Emenas, you stayed. Emenen, he, she, or it stayed. Amenamen, we stayed. Amenata, y'all stayed. And amen on, they stayed. Liquid aorists. Let me just say one more time. All we're doing here with the liquids, all this explanation, there's really just one thing you need to remember. With the liquids, you have this stem here that ends in a liquid, lambda, mu, nu, or rho, right? And after those liquids, we drop the sigma. Okay, other things may change a little bit, but the headline is after lambda, mu, nu, or rho, we drop the sigma. Got it? Let's look at some where they're most fun to see, out in the wild. Yay! Here in John 1, in verse 32, we have a liquid aorist. We have the Spirit descending as a dove, ex uranu, out of heaven, kai, emenen, ep auton. It remained on him. Emenen. Now, hopefully, when you saw that verb right there, all the alarms would go off, and you would say, that's got to be a liquid aorist. Why? Well, first of all, we have this augment, so we're in the past, but we don't have our sigma. We would expect there to be a sigma there, but there's no sigma, as we would expect with an aorist. So why is there no sigma? Oh, there we go. There's our liquid form right here. So we know that this is a liquid form. That's why the sigma dropped. And, okay, we had this little stem change here, but we're not bothered by that. And so it remained on him. Here we are in Acts 20, verse 5. And notice here we have Tychicus, and Trophimus, which is Trophimus. Hutoi, these, right? But these, going ahead, Emenon, waited for. Meno, they remained or waited for us in Troas here. But look at this verb. That's what I want you especially to see. Another form of meno here, right? We have our augment. We have our liquid. We would expect menson, but we can't have new sigma here, so the sigma drops. Here's an example of a liquid future in Luke 12:58. And Jesus is warning us to make peace with our enemies, lest the judge give us to the officer, and the officer throw us. Bale here. Balo means I throw. Okay, so bale, he, she, or it throws. But here, notice, actually, we lost a lambda, which, again, just get used to the idea that these stems will change around a little bit, but it's okay, right? We can take a deep breath. It's all right. The thing that we notice here that grabs us, here's what jumps out. The lambda, followed by this ending with the circumflex. It's future. He will throw. Here's another liquid future from John 20. It's an interesting passage. Mary has gone out to the tomb, right? And she's talking to the person she thinks is the gardener. Of course, it's Jesus. And it says, she says to him, lege auto, Kyrie, Lord, esu abastasas auton, if you've dragged him away, epa moi, tell me, pu, where, tell me where you have laid him. Ethekas auton. Kago, and I, him, aro, and I, him, I will raise. Aro. It's from iro. Again, we have this weird, that the vowel of the stem verb changed a little. We'll just get used to that, okay? But what sets us off here is the ro, followed by the personal ending with the circumflex. Liquid future. There you go. And by the way, it's a little ironic what she's saying, isn't it? I will raise him. When you think about what just happened here. One last liquid aorist here. Krino. Krino means I judge. So here we have ekrenos. Okay, well, what's going on with this one? We have an augment. So we're thinking past time here. It's got to be an aorist or an imperfect. Now, we might think imperfect, but there's no alpha sigma ending in the imperfect. Plus, what's our big clue? The nu. It's a liquid consonant. Do you see why I'm hammering this in? You got to see the lambda, mu, nu, and rho. And then when it's followed by, well, it looks like an aorist ending, but we lost the sigma here. That's a liquid aorist. So actually, Jesus is asking Simon a question here, and Simon answers, and Jesus says, orthos, orthodoxly, okay, rightly, ekronos, you judged. See the second person singular ending? Os, okay, rightly, you judged.
Liquids will not liquefy your brain. I won't let them, okay? They are elementary, right? Lambda, mu, nu, and rho. Elementary.
Elementary, my dear Watson.